So let's be abundantly clear. You were very against my decision to leave. You were not happy about it.
No, because it's a great company.
Yeah, exactly. But I when something in your heart is just telling you like, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Like, that. And it's how you felt with your company when you left corporate.
That's correct.
After 15 years. And that it's something that's difficult to relay. And it's like, but you're so good at what you do. You're thriving here. You have great teams. So many people came up to me. They're like, why are you leaving? I'm like, there's a time and a season for everything.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Make More podcast with Matt Heslin. I'm Matt Heslin. I'm your host. Thanks for tuning in. We've got our beautiful Brittany, my daughter, here today with us. Good morning, Britt.
Hi, Dad. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
It's great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's good to be back.
It's nice to have you. You know, Brittany and I were talking yesterday about how, I guess we were talking about working in the family business. And we want to talk today about how that differs from working outside the family business, what the corporate world is like, talk about what the family business is like, and really get into the nuts and bolts of the differences of working for the family business versus working for an outside job. So tell them, let's talk a little bit about your trajectory, where you came out after college, what you did.
Yeah, so that was an entirely different experience before jumping into my first job. I graduated during COVID, so came back from spring break in March, and I would say about a week or 2 weeks after we got back, everything shut down and we were forced online. So being an out-of-state kid, I was just like, so what am I going to do? Like, do I go back home? Like, what if I have this illness or disease? Because we really didn't understand what it was at the time. And I think...
So there were no protocols in place?
Not quite yet, no. Like, masks weren't available. Testing wasn't available at that time. So it was March. So it was so early on. And all we knew, I think there was just a lot of mass hysteria at the time.
Sure.
And just a lot of uncertainty. So during that time, I lived out the rest of my lease at Michigan State. A lot of the in-state and kids from Michigan, they went home. And then of all 7 us girls that lived in the house, 3 of us stayed till May 1st, just to take extra precautions for our families. And we finished our classes. There were some days we spent like literally 13 hours sitting in front of a puzzle, just putting it together. There was so much time to kill. But more of on that note, that, yeah, I would say the way I perceived to, I don't know, just my thoughts around completing college was so different for the long, and I told you this too.
Yeah, you did.
I couldn't see myself graduating, and I didn't know why. And that was months before anything happened. I'm like, I can always see something happening and envision it before it happens, and I couldn't. And I was like, this makes so much sense. It was the weirdest thing. So flash forward, me and Mom driving all of my stuff back across country, which was so fun, like having to get to a town by like 5 p.m. every day, eat whatever we could find, and we're driving my car back.
And that was because everything was closed,
Everything was closed. Right. It was crazy. Right. So we were on the phone with each other for hours because we didn't, have the walkie-talkies like we would do on road trips growing up. But it was just so fun. So it was really sweet to get to do that together. It was such a blessing that I had my mom there. And we drove back, and what that looked like getting back home, we went to Steamboat, found out you had Parkinson's. I was completing like an elective, finished my final, and that was it. So in that time frame, I was actually in your office because most people were working from home.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So you graduate from college.
Yes.
As many people are doing right this very minute.
Yeah.
As we're doing our podcast, people are graduating all over the country.
Yeah.
What did you do? How did you go about finding your first job? We talk about the experience of working in the office.
Yeah, so that's what I was about to jump into.
Okay, good.
So that segue, so mind you, like, and why I touch on the transition from college, because my mindset had totally shifted. Like, I thought I was going to be working in corporate finance or marketing in New York or Chicago, like so many of my friends were. A lot of them had start dates at that point, and it kept getting pushed back month after month after month to the point where they no longer had those jobs that had been secure for almost a year, some of them.
So they were just basically let go.
They were let go before they even started.
Wow.
And I think the fact that I also didn't have a job lined up, that was also, I think, a blessing in disguise too. It was something I had put a lot of pressure on myself. I'm like, I don't have a job yet. So many people do, yada, yada, yada. So fast forward, I'm in your office during COVID. Most people are at home, but I'm driving to the office every single day. And I'm like, how am I supposed to get a job? Because I'm looking at all of these online applications and it says for entry level, 3 to 5 years of experience. I'm like, I'm coming out of college. Like, and my quick realization that I have is, oh, I'm probably going to have to start like flipping burgers if there's like a burger joint open. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I know that I have a strong skill set. So at this point, I really need to humble myself because I will be lucky to have a job in an economy and in an environment like this.
How is entry level considered 3 to 5 years experience?
Well, I know. And that was like, it wasn't only confusing, but it was so defeating. And that was at the start of my job search.
Well, I remember you coming in the office 8 hours a day, sitting at a desk in an office, cold calling, dialing for jobs.
But that was a process. I had to learn how to do that.
Right.
And people were so concerned with maintaining the business to make sure. I mean, you remember all the restaurants that went out of business.
Yeah, of course.
The family businesses, like thousands gone. Just all the heritage and the culture that made up so many wonderful cities like New York, like thousands of family businesses gone.
Yes.
But that was across the country.
There's like 60,000 restaurants
Yeah,
closed.
some 60,000 restaurants. Yeah, I remember that headline too. But yeah, so I started on LinkedIn and I'm like, I don't really know what else to do. I did Indeed, Glassdoor, just all those platforms, and then reaching out to personal friends. And a lot of people just couldn't take people on. And I understood that. And I really had to get over the fact very quickly that this wasn't something that was personal. It was just the fight to survive for everybody.
Right, correct. Yeah, exactly.
Which only enabled me to fight harder. I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to come out of COVID not having a job or something in that time frame because I don't know how long this is going to last. So I'm like, I'm getting a job and I don't care what it is at this point. So it went from sending out, I would say, over 300 applications online in a time span of less than 2 months to then I'm like, okay, I'm going to pay for premium on LinkedIn and I'm just going to start looking for the highest ranking Michigan State alumni in that corporation. And I'm going to reach out to them and I'm going to ask them, how did you start your career? Can I talk to you for 15 minutes? What are the biggest pieces of advice that you could give me about starting my career, getting into the workforce, and like, what would you suggest right now?
Were most people receptive to your call?
Well, it's like, as we say, it's a statistics game. So out of maybe everyone responded maybe except 2, and I reached out to probably 50 people.
Wow.
And I think people were, especially Michigan State alumni, like, God bless them. Like, they're so hungry and passionate about helping Michigan State alumni. It's very much like the USC network, I would say. Very comparable in that way. But not everyone was necessarily receptive to a phone call. So I'd say out of every 5 to 10, I would say I had like 3 to 4.
Okay.
But a lot of people did take my call. I had, probably about like 15, something like that.
Okay, so you've come from Michigan State, you've graduated, you didn't walk yet.
No, I didn't walk yet. That wasn't for like 2 years after COVID.
Isn't that weird? You walked 2 years after.
2 years after I graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I would say in about like a 6-month time frame, I learned to job search. My job became learning how to job search. And it got to a point where I'm like, okay, all these phone calls got me was learning how to job search and talk and expand my network to current professionals in different industries, various industries. And from then I was like, that's not how I'm going to get a job.
No.
I'm going to have to walk into the door somewhere and they're going to have to be able to put a face to the name, and it's got to be more than just what's on the paper.
So you started pounding the pavement.
I started walking everywhere, pounding the pavement, talking to whoever I could, and that's how I ended up at my retail job. I walked in. I actually reached out to the store manager before I even knew her. I was like, hi, I just want like your advice on how you grew within this company. I'm really passionate about the fashion industry. I want to get into it. Can I take 15 minutes of your time? And she actually responded to my email
Wow.
And it was crazy because my first day when I walked in, I was sitting at her desk talking to her, and I'm like, I actually wrote you an email. She was like, I remember that email.
Wow.
And she was the one that really fast tracked my career within that corporate retail
So
company.
you were at the corporate job for what, 3 years?
For 3 years, yeah.
And what were your jobs?
I had a very different career path with that company. It's not normal to be able to do what I did. So that company has a long standing reputation of really, really cultivating their people. And I would say some of these people would be in these positions for years. One position managing essentially the same team for years. And you would start on the sales floor, which I did. Then you would have to hit certain marks like being the top salesperson,
So in
having
order,
a
in
great
order to
book
get
of
promoted, you had
people.
to hit certain metrics.
Yeah, you had to hit. I mean, that's with any job. You had to hit certain metrics, but you had to just be consistently standing out. But what I've always done is something that you ingrained in me is you say hi to everybody. You say hi to the janitor. You say hi to the CEO, and you treat everybody the same.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I've always taken.
You're very good at that.
Yeah, that's something. Thank you. That's something I've taken to heart, and that I really practiced while I was there. I made sure to make it my business to know everybody, and I knew almost every salesperson in all departments. Probably not
And this is
the
a
beauty
big
area.
company.
Well, and the store I was in is a 600-person store. It's a flagship store. It's huge. I didn't know the beauty area. That was a little daunting. I knew a couple people. But for the most part, I knew almost everybody in every department.
Okay, so you go from that job.
So then from there, started on the sales floor. And then I got promoted to an assistant role in the same store. To get promoted to an assistant manager role in a flagship store, that doesn't happen. You usually have to leave and go to a smaller mid-tier or something else. And you
show your stripes there.
Yeah, you show your stripes
and then
there.
you move back to the flagship store in a new capacity.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very traditional retail.
Yeah, so you go to either the off-brand, the discount store, the discount side of the flagship store, and then you go or mid-tier, smaller store, and then you come back to that store or a comparable store.
That's the growth trajectory.
That's the growth trajectory of the company. But I got to stay in the same store.
That's very fortunate.
And that was based off of the relationship that I had made with that store manager. And the relationship that I had with my floor manager as well. I was really close with her as well.
So
She was a great first mentor.
Okay, so you spent a few years in retail, find out kind of not your gig.
Well, and then I had two, I managed two, pretty major floors within the company at that point, too. So I bounced between stores. So I had 4 positions in 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
moving fast.
To make a very... Well, I didn't make a long story short. That was pretty long. Sorry.
No, it's good stuff. But people need to understand that, what's really interesting about your story, Britt, is that you graduated during COVID.
Yeah.
Everything was shut down. You decided, F that, I'm gonna get a job.
Yeah.
You come in my office, you're pounding the phones 8 hours a day, sending out emails, resumes, whatever you can to get contact. So get out on the pavement, start looking for a job, find a job, get promoted 4 times in 3 years, and at the flagship store. I mean, that's an impressive achievement, really, right out of college. Yeah. And then talk about after you left, what you went and did, and where you are now.
So I'll kind of lightly touch on that experience, but at that point within the retail company, there were just changes that I think had no longer resonated with me. I felt personally, and it's just my viewpoint on that's changed quite a bit as well since leaving the company. It is a great company. They really, really know how to cultivate some solid talent. And that's why everyone is so hungry to pluck talent out of that store. Sure. But there's the one thing I've always said is I really wish that they were better at retaining the talent that they've developed. Because truly they would.
So they put a lot of money into training and development, but then they let the people go to other companies.
Yeah.
And that turnover is so expensive at that point?
It is. And I mean, even as a manager, I was constantly hiring people on every team that I was on. But I think that's also nature of the retail beast. It's just what it is. But anyways, so I got to a point where I was just like, I knew my time was up. I learned what I could.
Yeah.
My career path within that company wasn't what I thought it was going to be anymore because there was so much change all the time. There was a lot of politics. From my point of view, you could ask somebody and that could be totally different.
Sure.
But as several colleagues that I've maintained very close relationships with would probably agree with me. And that's just a select few people that are very close to me. So that could also be biased again. But yeah, there were changes that had been happening. I no longer felt like I could support my employees the way I could before. And I'm like, you know what? I think my time here is done. And if I'm called back here, great, I'll come back. But it's not going to be at the store level. It's going to be different.
You and I were talking yesterday about specifically how they had you doing a lot of busy work.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard. And busy work does not equal productivity.
No, and that's something I've had to unlearn as well since this last October, is learning the difference of what productivity looks like. Like busy work. For me, it really affected my health. I found out that I had hypothyroidism, and then I had severe cortisol issues, and that's been a journey in itself. But the environment that I was in and the busy work and the micromanaging to some degrees, like that all really heightened that.
Well, let me step in for a second. So the original manager left, right?
The store manager?
Yeah.
She did.
And so you got a new environment.
She left and then came back and got promoted as soon as she came back. It was a whole thing. But
she left for Florida.
Yeah.
But the issue is the culture of she was
the culture of the store.
Changed.
In my opinion, as a manager.
And so the new manager decided that busy work equaled productivity.
Yeah, and I think that's always been part of the fabrication of that company. I think to a certain extent, it wasn't just her, but busy work has always been heavily ingrained with that store, that company. But then when obviously the leadership changed, the dynamic was very different. The joy was no longer there, in my opinion. And plus, relationships with different leaders is always going to be different. You're going to have to learn to navigate that in a corporate setting, because no one person is the same. Their experiences are different. And this other individual is so highly qualified, brilliant, has had some really insane wins under her belt.
So what's interesting is, we've walked through your progress and success at finding the job, getting promoted, moving up the chain, deciding that the culture had changed and that it was probably time to go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your decision to leave and where you went and what you're doing now.
So let's be abundantly clear. You were very against my decision to leave. You were not happy about it.
No, because it's a great company.
Yeah, exactly. But I when something in your heart is just telling you like, it's time to go.
Yeah.
Like, that. And it's how you felt with your company when you left corporate.
That's correct.
After 15 years. And that it's something that's difficult to relay. And it's like, but you're so good at what you do. You're thriving here. You have great teams. So many people came up to me. They're like, why are you leaving? I'm like, there's a time and a season for everything, And
yeah, absolutely.
That season had just kind of come to a close. So what happened was I had met a former boss through one of my best friends. And it was a risk that I took. It's essentially
because it was a startup.
Yeah, essentially because it was a startup. It is a startup, and the industry was not something that I was familiar with, the network marketing industry, and I had to quickly learn a lot about that. And I was hired for a position, for technically 2 positions, and at the end of the day, it didn't really pan out. It just didn't work between the both of us, and
would you say that there are different expectations?
I would absolutely say there were different expectations.
Yeah.
There were different expectations of how I thought I was going to learn, how I was going to support that business, because I was brought on essentially to help manage the business side of things and to help grow the business and essentially carve things out to when we were able to hire on more employees. But at the same time, the more I got to understand about how they ran their business, it just wasn't something that I think that I didn't need to be a part of.
Right.
And they needed someone very different. I think that was also familiar with what they needed.
Okay, so you made the decision to part ways.
Yeah, we did.
You parted amiably.
Yeah.
And
But what I learned has helped me transition into now working for you.
Right.
And what I learned in that very short, it was about like maybe a month and a half, which is kind of crazy. But I had learned enough in a short amount of time and was exposed to just enough to understand what you wanted to do, what you needed. And it just happened so naturally, which is really cool because, because we're on the topic, obviously, of working with family business. And I'd made it clear for years to family, to friends of family, to various adults at GSERA, Michigan State, anyone that kind of understood who I was, who you were, and how you run things. Just the deep level of respect for you. Like I was so set on not working for you. And I've said this before on the podcast. I was so set on it.
Why is that?
Because it took a lot for you to leave your corporate company. You took a big risk. 5 years. And I remember that from a young age, taking the time to build what you have built now. And those 5 years, those were a long 5 years.
Yeah, I didn't get a paycheck for 5 years.
Yeah. And a lot of people my age
scary.
don't understand that. They come to you for advice and they're looking at the after
Yes.
of all of the work that you've gotten. I'm like, you're not him. He can tell you what he did, but I can guarantee that you do not have the diligence factor and the sacrifice. Like you don't have the ability to sacrifice in the way that he did. Like I just know that about some of the individuals that have come and talked to you.
Yeah.
They think by talking to you, they are able to kind of somehow extract
Yeah.
what's something that you have that people can't take. And yeah, so I was always just like, I want to be very conscientious, and because I have the utmost respect for you as my dad, but also as a professional. I've met anyone else like you in terms of just a working professional. And so I honor what you do and who you are and how you've raised our family. And, no family's perfect. I don't claim that. I'm a highly imperfect individual.
Yeah.
But
I'm a crash dummy.
it's okay. At least you're good looking though.
Thanks.
Yeah, I didn't want to work for you because I was like, I have too much respect for my dad to come into something and out of high school, college, and just jump into it. I'm like, no, there's a lot of growing up that needs to happen here.
Yeah.
And I knew that I knew that so deeply in myself. I'm like, there's a lot of growing up that needs to happen. And I'm not going to do that in an environment where it's a smaller business and each employee is so crucial, such a crucial part of the process, of the deal making process. I'm like, no. And honestly, I don't feel like I deserve to be there. I know I'm smart enough and I'm capable and I understand the business in a way like, that my siblings don't, just because I was around it from an early age.
Sure.
But like, I'm like, I need to earn that. And if I am his daughter, it means there's even more of a target on my back when I step in, and I got to be very conscientious of what's happening when I walk in there.
Well, since you started, you've done an amazing job of navigating between daughter and employee.
Thank you.
So just for our listeners' benefit, one of the things that we're doing is in our family, we have many family businesses, many properties, and there has to be a protege in our empire so that somebody can step into the role and run it when I'm gone. And I don't intend on working another 10 years. So, we have Brittany not only running, all of our social media and online content and whatnot, but we're actually teaching Brittany how the family trusts work, how the trusts come together. What does the business look like? She sits in on all the real estate meetings. She sits in. So for fathers out there who have daughters or sons that want to work in the family business, it's a wonderful thing once they get the experience, once they have some value to bring to you. And then you can also then start to teach them about all of your inner workings in businesses and finances. And so Brittany's learning all of that so that we're not going to miss a beat if something were to happen to me, God willing. But she's doing a great job. She's learning a lot. And I think it's a really different culture, isn't it?
It is. Well, and I have to give credit where credit's due. Steven has such a heavy hand in everything. Steven's, I'm so blessed to have Steven.
Yeah.
So we're so lucky. He is incredible. So I must give credit where credit's due. That's not all me. So, but thank you. I love that. But I have such a deep appreciation for Steven. But yeah, kind of on that.
Talk about the cultures.
Yeah, I'll talk about the cultures, but yeah. So, I didn't want to work for you. I stepped out, got my experience for about 5 years, worked under different mentors, and then it just happened to work out for the both of us. And we also both said that like timing was everything, and it wasn't something we were ever going to force. So that was a big component in that as well. But with the cultures, you're working in a corporate culture versus a private business.
Right. Night and day.
Night and day. Like I can go in depth about, my corporate company that I had worked for and just the family aspect of it and like the little rah chants and, how it's like they had a very clear set of values.
Yeah.
And the customers knew those values.
Yeah.
That was so apparent.
And they've kept that culture for generations.
To an extent.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason why I left is because I think the values were kind of taped on the wall when you walked in, but the culture itself is kind of dying. So
it's probably what, third or fourth generation family?
It's, I think, fourth generation.
Yeah, you're going to lose some culture over the years.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But there's a responsibility to decide. So do we stay a public company?
Right.
And can you afford that? Can you afford to go back to being a private company?
Right.
That's a big thing too. But
were they considering that?
They were. And I don't know if that's still in play. I hear rumblings all the time from former employees and friends that still work there. But yeah, they are considering or were considering going back to being private. And I think that honestly would be in their best interest. That's just a personal opinion though, to really, if they're still attached to the culture that they had created, then yeah, it might be in their best interest to go back. But if not, then maybe you need to take a look at your values and change things around because that's okay to redevelop over time too. And I don't think people understand that. Like they actually added a value over the course of several generations, which is cool. But yeah, with your company, culture-wise, it's extremely lighthearted. It's funny.
Fun.
I walk in and this was, during COVID when I was job searching, you're taking a golf club and you're hitting golf balls in your own office, whacking picture frames with golf balls. And I hear Danielle like screaming, your assistant kind of like ducking under like her desk. I'm like,
these are real golf balls too.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So the way
you're banned from that now, from what I heard.
I know they took it away from me. But the way I built my company, I was on a culture of fun.
Yeah.
And rewards for all.
Yes.
So it's an intense environment. It's a hard work environment, but people make great money and they learn a lot and they have fun.
Yeah.
And that's the culture I want. And that's the culture I've developed and I've kept that culture. And if you don't fit in that culture, then I can't have you as an employee. Everybody's funny, everybody's fun, everybody jokes around, they give each other a hard time, and it's great fun. But I think, for the listeners, if you have a family business or you want to work in the family business, I think Britt's given great insight into, there's a trajectory that should be followed. Not necessarily your trajectory, but there should be a trajectory of going out on your own, making your own way, learning, growing, developing, and then you come to the family business.
Well, yeah, and more than anything, like I had to know that I could go out and do it on my own.
Yeah.
Like that gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
I needed to learn to manage teams,
Yep.
manage a facet of the business for a big corporation, and honestly, really learn my leadership style and my learning style as a professional. And then, yeah, shoot, yeah.
Well, you know, the other thing I'll say is, what advice would you give to people who want to work in their family businesses? I mean, you have many friends who have fathers who have businesses.
I have my two best friends also work for their dads.
Okay.
Which is crazy because they both worked for apparel companies. One worked for a sports apparel company. One also worked for my same company that I worked for. And, you know, one of my best friends' dads, Cuberto, was on the show. And then one of my other best friends, we're planning for her dad to be on the show, which is really special.
Yeah.
But they're both, I think we all, like the both of us, all three of us have all approached it the same way. We went out and did different things before coming to work for our dads. And it was never something the three of us had planned on. Never talked about it, never planned on it. Yeah. I mean, I didn't tell Gigi, like, oh, I'm going to go work for my dad. Like, I want to work for my dad. Like, she didn't say the same thing. That was never her plan to go work for Cuberto. Same thing with Madison. She never planned to go work for Brian.
You know, what's interesting is that I think it builds a deeper bond between you and I.
Yeah.
Because you have so much knowledge of the inner workings of the family businesses now, and you know what the stress points are, and you know what the goals are. You sit in the real estate development meetings. You see how hard we push. And we've got like 30-some deals going. And I think knowing that and knowing the financials of the family empire and knowing all of the different aspects of the businesses that I'm teaching you is going to be really helpful in a transitionary phase. And there will be a transition someday. You know, so the more time I get with you, the better off we're going to be. And that's what I would tell to the fathers listening or the business owners who want to bring children in. The more time you can spend with them one-on-one and expose them to all the meetings you go to, all the trust meetings, the attorney meetings, whatever your business is, you know, the more you can expose them, the better off you're going to be.
I think it goes deeper than that, though.
Why?
Because we've had a deep bond to begin with. Like, for the last, I would say 15 years, like, we would just go and spend time together all the time. Like, go and get coffee, go to lunches. Like, we weren't doing anything. Yeah, let's just go do something all the time, go on walks. Like, we've been doing this for a long time. So for quite a while, I would say for the most part, I really do understand how you think and what you want.
Well, you probably got to hear a lot of conversations that I was on.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very, I was privy to hearing some very private conversations. And then, you know, obviously people you'd never met before and how you take those calls. And you're like, okay, you have 30 seconds to tell me why you're calling me and what you want to call me about. And they would waste like 15 seconds introducing their name and who they work for. And you're like, that's 15 seconds down. You got 15 left. What do you got? And I was just like, oh, geez.
Yeah, I know. You know, it's funny because Danielle will say, Matt, this guy's been calling for 4 years trying to get into you. I said, well, tell him when he gets his pitch down and when he's got a product that I want to call me back.
Yeah.
I get calls all the time from people who want to just, can I have 10 minutes of your time? Can I have 20 minutes of your time? And if you add that all up, it's the composition of a full day.
Yeah. When you know what? This is so simple, but I heard someone say this. Oh, George Schnod, when he said this recently, he's like, because he was, you know, teaching these younger adults at Morgan Stanley, just a class. And he's like, oh, you're late? Pay me like $20,000 because that's how much I would be making in this allotment of time because you were late. I was like, wow. I'm like, there's some truth in that because he's getting highly paid for his time.
Right.
And a lot of these people aren't calling with the mindset of like, oh, you know, time is money, but also out of respect for this person and what he has going on, he could be making like X amount of dollars within the
Yeah.
30 seconds that I'm
Yeah.
calling him. And, I don't think it's an obvious thought. I mean, I certainly have never thought of it that way before, but when George said that, I was like, wow, that's pretty eye-opening. And so when I would say when you're trying to get a hold of someone like you, my advice to anyone would be like, maybe approach it with the mind frame that like time is money and each second counts.
Every second counts.
When you want to get a hold of someone like that.
Have we aired that podcast?
No, we just went over that. We did not. We've not aired it yet.
Okay. That's a good one. Yeah, George is a good one.
Yeah.
That's a great podcast.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how do you...
By the time of this podcast, you'll have aired it, though.
Oh, okay. By the time this one comes out?
It'll have been the week before.
Good. So, so talk about your siblings for a second. Is there any hard feelings among your siblings working for me?
If they were to go work for you?
No. Is there any resentments? Like in families, there's always some competition, some pull.
To the extent of my knowledge, no. I mean, for my sister, I think she knows
Yeah.
that was never meant to be
Her walk.
her walk.
No.
For me, I always had the option.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been pegged into that hole.
Yeah.
I've always kind of been trying to go a different way.
But you just kept getting pulled back in.
Yeah, and ebbs and flows. But my sister is just so genuine and so sweet and just so funny. Maddie is so funny.
She's gonna make a great school teacher.
Yeah, and I think it's taken time for her to come into her own, like it does all of us.
Sure.
And she's had so many hills to climb, and I'm so proud of her. I look up to her a lot because of the person that she's become and how resilient she is.
She is so resilient.
Like that is my word for her, is just
Yeah.
resilient. And she's still just a ball of life, and she's spunky and funny, but she's always known that like that's not what I want to do. And if she were sitting in this chair, she'd be like, nope, that's not me.
It's gonna be interesting to see if Reagan has any interest.
I mean, he's going to LMU now. He and if he stays at LMU, like I don't know, it just depends on, soccer and whatever else. But he has a lot of growing up to do. He's 19.
Yeah.
I remember being 19. You have a lot of thoughts and feelings, a lot of personal pressures that you put
Sure.
on yourself of who you think you're supposed to be. You're mourning who you thought you were going to be in certain aspects. And that, I feel like there's times where that process kind of keeps repeating in your early 20s, because you have an idea of like, oh, by 22 I was going to do this, by 25 I was going to do or be this, and people had said like, oh, I'm supposed to be this. And for me personally, that was something I really had to let go of.
Yeah.
Because I had a panic attack around the time we found out about your Parkinson's, and
Yeah.
I had just started at that corporate company, and I've had put so much pressure on myself to just be this person. And people had spoken so many wonderful words over me, and they continue to, and they have, but there was such a pressure I'd put on myself to live up to that and to perform. And I know I'm going to do that. It's not a question in my mind. It's never been a question, even
Right.
then, but there were so many unrealistic pressures that I'd put on myself, and it had to be instantaneous, because you're looking on like, and I told you this, like comparative social media, like you're looking at, the Kylie Jenners of the world and all these influencers, and you're like, they get to wear these things and buy these things and go these places and look this way and do this and do that, and they're only this age, and it's soul sucking. It is life sucking.
When you start comparing yourself to others, it's the worst.
It is. Like I remember this, like I was a senior in college, and I had some of my guy friends say like, what is the Britt Heslin going to be doing when she's by the time she's 25? And that's something that like stuck with me. And it was something that I clutched onto, like, oh, by 25, like I got to be like a certain someone. Because people are expecting this of me.
What's interesting is I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves.
Yeah.
There's familial pressure probably.
Yeah.
From the parents, and then there's self-pressure.
Yes.
And when people start comparing themselves to other people, they start to feel less than
Yeah.
and put themselves down.
Well,
And they also,
put other people down too.
well, envy is toxic.
It's a killer. It's a silent killer.
It's a killer. I mean, if you can't be happy for other people,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Well, and I think not necessarily the envy side of it, but I think some of those just the headspace that I was in, I think Reagan is going through some of that right now, just because that's his age. I don't know to what extent, but I know there's a lot that he's sorting through, and there's excitement, but there's uncertainty, and then there's a little bit of fear. That's with all kids that recently graduate college. You can be so excited, but it's just like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life? And you feel such a pressure to figure it out right then, and that you have to know.
My advice to people is,
yeah,
half of knowing what you want to do is knowing what you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you find out what you don't want to do is by trying things.
yeah,
So you got to go out and try and multiple things before you're going to find out what you like.
yeah.
And the average millennial will have 6 different careers, not within the same field either. 6 different careers. So I want something fun.
Okay.
How's your new condo?
Oh, it's so fun. I mean, I live with my best friend Maddie, and like I said, my other best friend Gigi was my broker, and then my other best friend is my roommate.
That's so cool.
It's so cool. Yeah, God's been really good that way. So special. But Maddie and I have like the same aesthetic. We live very similarly, so it's just been so seamless.
It's easy.
It's easy. Yeah.
That was a great party on Saturday.
Yeah, we had our housewarming on Saturday, and we just had all of our friends and our family, people we've met through various walks of life, like through work. I had former employees that are now very, very great friends of mine there as well. And they were just like, wow, I'm so excited to be here to celebrate. And I'm like, yeah, you have been an integral part of me growing up.
Well, and what was really cool was that the view of the ocean. I mean, you literally have a full ocean view.
Yeah.
All the way down to
San Diego.
San Diego. I mean, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Pretty lucky.
Oh, yeah, just blessed is really the word that I would use. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. I wake up every morning and I'm like,
do you have coffee on the table overlooking the beach?
So this morning I had it in my bed. I was just doing some reading. But yeah, like when I will just start doing some research in the mornings, I will just have my coffee and sit there. And it's so nice.
I would work from home and work. Let's talk about that for a second. We talked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
So how much time do you work from home? How much time are you working at the office now?
Well, I would say like, I just went cross-eyed. Sorry. I was thinking.
I'm like, what's going on? What is going on?
Oh man. Maybe I need another coffee. Jeez. But I'd say like 20 hours a week max. Because I'll just kind of like lay out my schedule, I guess. So on Mondays, I'll kind of wake up a little bit slower, maybe go on a walk, make some breakfast. Then I'll get ready and go to the office, get there by 11:30 for a meeting at 12. Meeting's done between 12:30 to 1, depending on, what we're talking about.
That's our real estate development meeting.
Yeah, real estate development.
That's where we go over
all
all our projects.
Yeah. And then I'll stay between 1 and 2:30, and then I'll go back to the condo. And I'll do some research, and I'll get stuff prepped for the podcast on Tuesday. Tuesday, we're in early doing the podcast, taking notes on the podcast, timed notes, and pulling quotes, and just, anything relevant for the listener that they can grab hold to. And Stephen and I are just kind of putting our heads together for what upcoming, I guess, episodes look like. And yeah.
And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is more research.
Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is more research. And then Saturday is more podcast.
So going back to that discussion.
Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is at home.
But going back to the discussion we were having about, busyness does not equal productivity.
Yes.
I think you've discovered that you don't have to be busy every second to be productive.
I was kind of stressed out at first because working at home, you're still in someone else's time and you're getting paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also had to realize that like you don't have to be doing something for 12 hours a day
To be productive.
back to back to back to back to be productive. Like you could finish your day's work in a couple hours or maybe an hour. Like it just depends, but it's like and then, look for something else to do. Like be productive, proactive, I should say. But I've really had to unlearn, and I'm using the word unlearn because I've had to disassociate busy work and productivity from being the same thing. Because it was so heavily ingrained.
Totally different things.
Totally different things. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I don't know. It's going good so far. It's not a bad thing working from the condo, but I have to make sure I'm like getting up and walking because I'm sitting for so long on my laptop.
So how is it paying mortgages and utilities and?
Oh, it sucks. It's terrible.
It's expensive, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm like nickel and dimes like every 5 seconds. I'm like, didn't I just pay this bill?
Don't you feel house poor?
Oh no, I'm house poor. Like that's like I don't feel it. I am. Like,
I am house poor.
but I'm not obviously spending like money on clothes and stuff like I was before when because I was paying you and mom rent when I was living at the house.
Are you able to live up to the 10-10-80 rule?
We're still working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, but a lot of it's going to obviously just rent and various things.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing, though.
Groceries.
You're making money every month you own that condo because
Yeah.
prices are going up. It appreciates, and you're going to make the wealth off of that. And someday you're going to buy another one and move into that one and rent this one out, and that's all cash flow. Mm-hmm. So you may want to have Gigi looking for an investment property because the real estate in Dana Point.
We've talked about it already, which is crazy. Like as soon as we bought this condo, she and I were like, so what other projects do we want to do together? Because we worked so well together. Like that was such a pleasant surprise because you don't always work well with your best friends.
How was the process of buying the condo? How did you find it interesting?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a podcast on it. So I guess to just kind of revisit that. And it's helped me understand more of the meetings, the real estate meetings on Mondays. So I'm more familiarized with the process between, the Utah house, between my condo.
Oh, that's right. You helped with the Utah house.
Yeah, I did help with the Utah house. and I still am. But it's a good thing.
That's what
It's fun.
We're going there today.
Yeah, we are going today. And we're going to, walk in nature and get fitted for some clubs. I'm going to get back to playing golf. Get some lefty clubs.
There's so much to do up there in Utah that literally we could be busy every day, all day. It's a neat place. It's a really neat place.
Well, it's pretty special. And everyone will ask, like, so where are you? Are you in Park City? I'm like, no, we're not in Park City. We're like 10, 15 away. They're like, so we're Summit. I'll say like, oh, we're in Summit County. They're like, where is that? I'm like, it's just off the I-80, like west. I'm like, it's out there. But there's so much to do. So I think, as you're entering more of the back nine of your life, and I'm still on my front nine, I think there's just so much to do and learn together. And you have so much wisdom to pass down, and we get to use the Utah house to talk about really what we want that to look like. There's just the transitory period from me being at Green Sands and Heslin Holdings, and what you want your life to look like as you slowly transition out.
That's exactly what I plan on doing.
Yeah.
I transition out, you transition in.
More or less, yeah.
More or less. Not too fast.
Not too fast.
I'm not ready yet.
Not ready yet. And then obviously, I've always had an affinity for, I think, being accomplished in multiple areas, not just like one subset or like one industry. So there's so many things.
Well, the other thing is you're very creative.
Thank you.
You have such a knack for aesthetics and for colors and for spacing and spatial elementation. I mean, you're very, very accomplished at that. So that's why it's great to have you up at the Utah house. Because
Yeah, I mean, you bet I'm going to have a hand in what furniture is being picked out.
you know what? It's a process.
It's such a process.
Because the house is so big, you have to measure every room
Everything.
for every piece of furniture.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy moly.
Well, and you haven't done that in what?
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
And this house, well, and this house is so particular because it's, the wood floors are so beautiful. So you can't just have cruddy furniture on extremely beautiful floors.
You don't go discount furniture.
So it's crazy to see, like, I guess really how much you have to put into it after buying the house. And then there comes, managing the property and then paying the people who help manage the property. And then you have all the club fees and then you have like membership fees.
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so
That
scary.
house, I mean, it's unbelievable, the expenses.
Yeah.
And because it's a multi-seasonal house, winter requires certain maintenance.
Sure.
Summer requires certain maintenance. There's constant maintenance going on all over the property. And
Yeah.
that's just, it's a cash sucker.
Well, even from like, they were saying like you have to treat the trees a certain way so you don't have like these little animals like climbing up the trees
Yeah.
and, making sure that, the cement is heated properly or turned off, that it's switching on or right, or that you even have, I forget what's in the basement, but it helps like just kind of maintain all of like the gases. Was it the rayon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Radon gas.
Radon, excuse me. Yes.
You gotta.
Which
keep
is
the
something we
radon
don't have to
gas.
worry about out here in California. So there's just so many different components to even having a house out of state that you have to like learn about, which has been
Yeah.
a cool process.
That's a good process too.
And, obviously, I'm sure those are things that you have to think about when developing new properties for your business as well.
So
That was eye-opening for me.
and very cool. So we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot about your exiting college, your career path, how you got to here. We've talked about the culture of a big company versus the culture of Green Sands, our company.
Yeah.
Your experiences. So, have you thought about the next 5 years about what you're going to do, what you want to be doing?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think about it. I mean, investing in more properties is definitely a priority.
That free cash flow,
Yes.
making money while you sleep.
Yes. Making money while I sleep. Growing a family. That's definitely,
Yes,
gosh,
high on the priority list.
my gosh.
I need grandchildren.
Are you done?
Yeah,
Are you going to keep going?
I'm done.
You got it all out?
I just wanted to get it out there.
Okay. I know, because I hear about it at least once a day, maybe a couple times a week. But just had to make sure you got it out because I know you want everyone to listen.
I want everybody to know that I'm up for grandkids.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny.
Not be like nervous laughing right now. I'm like, pressure's on. I'm like, get me out of here.
You're the oldest.
Oh yeah. Maddie's looking in good shape too. She's only 2 years younger. You never know. But either way, so the next 5 years, yeah, definitely family. And then at some point, like I would like to start my own business. That's something I've talked to you about, but I think it's very doable to be able to do this and then something else on the
You
side.
just add it on to the corporate umbrella.
Yeah, more of the green sand side.
Yeah.
That's because as I've talked about with you, like I want to really build that site out to be a really nice portfolio.
Well, what we're doing, Britt, is we're buying so many properties every
Yeah.
year that all cash flow positive, that we have the cash flow to be able to help finance a new business entity and roll it up into the corporate umbrella. So, I mean, that's something you should be giving a lot of thought to.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, that was my first thought too. Is if I were to start anything, I would like it to be under the Green Sands umbrella.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool. And then aside from that, I think I want to be. For some reason, it's just kind of been on my heart recently. Like I want to be involved with the city of Dana Point for some reason. So
In what
just
capacity?
I don't know. That's such like a generic thing to throw out there, but like I think it's important to really know and understand your community, to have a heart for your community, for your neighbors, and to want to better the world around you.
Yeah.
So whatever that looks like, I guess I'll keep you updated. But like,
Okay.
yeah, I just kind of, I've had a recent, and this could, I don't know, this interest could die off, who knows, but it's just been a recent piqued interest of mine.
Those are great,
So-
great stepping stones. Great
Yeah,
milestones.
we'll see. I think it's important to really know and understand the world around you, and to obviously not want to be successful just for yourself. Success is meant to be shared with people, even people that you don't know.
You know, Rick Warren's book, the very first line is, "It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about helping other people."
Mm-hmm.
And as a family, we do that, a lot of that through our foundation and whatnot. And you're doing it through your church, and you're doing it through your activities, wanting to get involved with Dana Point. But I think you've got a great, I know you've got a great future. I know it's going to be with Green Sands. I know it's going to be opening your own company, and, you know, we'll figure that out when we get to that bridge. How about any questions for me? You have anything you want to talk about?
Oh man, what's the first thing you're gonna do when we get to Utah?
Take a nap. I was taking a nap. I'm tired.
I know, you just kind of like snored right there.
I laughed.
I
Probably-
mean,
Probably take a nap and then, you know, start going shopping to fill the house with goods.
goods and food and all that nice stuff.
Yeah, I want to go play some pickleball there. I want to go out and play some golf.
I still haven't played pickleball yet, and I keep getting like, I just have so many people that are like, oh, do you want to play out? And I'm busy on the days that I keep getting asked, but I haven't had an opportunity to play. So
We'll play out there.
yeah, maybe I can play with you, Mom. But yeah, I mean, so obviously, you know, you're here doing Green Sands, Heslin Holdings, and the podcast. What kind of vision do you have for the next, I would say, 10 years of your life?
For myself or the family?
Both, maybe. I mean, whatever applies.
So, you know, obviously, I'm interested in furthering the real estate empire.
When I ask, because you're so meticulous with your goals.
Yeah, so every November before the new year, I sit down and write down all my goals: financial goals, spiritual goals, relationship goals, cash flow goals, health goals, fitness goals. I'm very meticulous about my goals.
Yeah.
And I look at them every month. How am I doing? How am I doing? And if I'm not doing well, I check in with myself and go, why is that? And then I go back to getting back on track.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps keep me on track. So I do a monthly self-evaluation. But I see probably buying another $500 million in properties, probably buying another energy company, small energy company, a portion of it. You know, I don't want to own the whole thing because I don't want to run it.
That's right.
But investing in new energy, and I mean lithium primarily.
Yeah, that we've talked about at
and
length.
hydrogen.
Yeah.
Lithium and hydrogen. So we own a lithium, an interest in a big lithium company. So we've accomplished that. Now I'm looking for hydrogen.
It's exciting.
It's exciting. It really is. I have no plans to retire because I don't know what I do all day.
Well, and I think especially with Parkinson's, it's so healthy for your brain because it's been said statistically that like when you retire, your brain just starts kind of
Atrophying.
yeah, like about like what 7 years after you retired, it starts. Yeah.
The average male will live 7 years if he truly retires and has nothing to do.
Yeah. Which you did at 42, which was crazy.
When I retired at 42, I was bored.
Yeah.
So I came back and started 3 companies.
Like, who does that? Okay.
Who did it?
But my other, I guess, I have two questions that go together. What has been your favorite thing about doing the podcast so far?
You know what? Knowing that people are listening and learning, I'm getting so much feedback from people I didn't know were listening. Mm-hmm. But people are listening and they're going, there's so much wisdom in the podcast. Your guests are so accomplished and they love you. I mean, who doesn't love you? I mean, that's just,
That's very sweet. Thank you.
But they love you. They love your perspective. You uniquely relate to the Gen Zennials, as you like to call them, Gen Z and millennials.
Yeah.
And I think you touched that audience really well. And I think the favorite thing is sitting down and talking to people, getting their story out there, and helping them in any way I can, and knowing that every podcast we do, we're helping somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite.
Okay, and then that's a great answer. Thank you. And then, what have been some unexpected, I'd say, components about podcasting that, like, what are some unexpected things that you've encountered in producing and developing a podcast? Like, I don't want to say like negative things because I really don't see any negatives to this at all. I don't feel that there's any negative things to this. But maybe unexpected or learning curves for you personally.
I'm flabbergasted by the people that come up to me and tell me that they're watching it. I think I've learned that through Stephen's work and your work, you're able to get it out to multitudes of people. And people are truly interested in authentic communication, authentic, genuine, helpful communication. Mm-hmm. And that's what this podcast is meant to do. It's meant to help people who are looking at for various types of help, financial help, relational help, whatever we can offer to help. That's what the goal is. That's what I'm most proud about.
And then what are 3 topics? It doesn't have to be 3. Like if one just comes to mind, great. But what is maybe 1 or 3 topics that you really, really are passionate about that you want to cover that we haven't covered yet?
I really am. I think one of the topics is health. So Tony Robbins wrote a book called Life Force.
So in relation to Parkinson's or just health in general?
Health in general.
Okay.
Preventative health specifically.
Okay.
What people can do for preventative health. I'm reading Tony Robbins' book right now, Life Force, and I'm learning so much about what you can do to prevent cancer. You can prevent, Parkinson's. There's preventative and then there's curative, and he focuses on the preventative. So that's one podcast I really want to focus on is, getting that information disseminated out to the public. That's probably the first one. The second one is spending time talking about the next 10 years, what that's going to look like.
Okay.
I want to spend some time because I just touched on it a little bit here.
Oh, yeah.
But I've got huge goals. I'm not retiring. I'm just, so you get a lot of time to learn. But I want to spend some time on that. So I think one of the other things that I want to focus on in the future podcasts is other faiths. Mm-hmm. I'm Christian, but I want to bring in Buddhists, Muslims, and bring Jewish people in and get their perspective on their faith and how their faith is developed and how their faith pushes their businesses forward, and how that looks. I think that's probably the other one I want to focus on.
I like that one just because I think it's so important to understand why people believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And why their life does or doesn't center around it.
Right.
Whether it's something that's more casual that they approach, or it's quite literally the epicenter of everything that they do. I think that's so important. It tells you a lot about a person, obviously. So I'm excited for that one. That would be really cool.
I think that'd be a really cool podcast.
Yeah, I think it's different because I think there's so much hate in the world, and
oh my God,
I think it's important to just have a heart for people, period.
Yes.
And having a heart for people just comes with having an open heart to understand who they are and why they believe what they believe, whether you believe what they believe or not.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And then I think that 10-year one will be really, really cool too.
The 10-year one and the faith.
I know a lot of people will want insight to how you really carve out your goals and your mindset behind approaching that, and your intentional, how you're so intentional about approaching those goals.
The reason that we've achieved such great success is because we planned for it. And luck too plays a role in it, right? I mean, planning and luck and good fortune, and faith, like Tim Bush said, faith is everything. If you don't have faith in yourself, if you don't have faith in God, if you don't have faith in your abilities, you're not going to succeed.
Yeah.
So you got to have faith in all those components.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think, the more faith you have, you'll find that luck seems to follow,
Yeah.
That's kind of what I've learned. But yeah, I think we've given our listeners so much to chew on. I'm so grateful that you had me back.
Well, thanks for coming in. I love you.
Yeah, I love you
Yeah,
too.
good. Let's get on the plane.
All right. See ya.
Have a good day.
Bye.